Hi everyone, my name is Kevin, and I want to share my journey of learning English with you. Learning English has been incredibly important for me because it opens up so many opportunities in education, career, and connecting with people from around the world. When I first decided to learn English, I knew it would be a challenge, but I also knew the benefits would be worth it. Being proficient in English can enhance your educational prospects, open doors to better job opportunities, and allow you to communicate with a vast number of people globally. It is the language of international business, science, technology, and entertainment. For me, learning English was not just about understanding a new language, but also about embracing a new way of thinking and connecting with the world. Throughout my journey, I faced numerous obstacles, from struggling with pronunciation to grappling with complex grammar rules. However, each challenge taught me something new and pushed me to develop effective strategies to improve my skills. I want to share these strategies with you today, as well as the tips and techniques that helped me stay motivated and make consistent progress. I hope my story can inspire and assist others who are on their own English learning journey. Remember, learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint, and every step you take brings you closer to your goal. So, let's dive into my experience and the lessons I learned along the way. Episode 1. Beginning the Journey. When I first started learning English, it felt like trying to climb a mountain. The grammar rules were confusing and the vocabulary seemed endless. My initial attempts were met with frustration and doubt. However, I knew that to succeed, I had to immerse myself in the language as much as possible. My first step was to bring English into my daily life. I began with simple yet effective techniques. I labeled items in my house with their English names. For example, I put a label saying refrigerator on my fridge, mirror on my mirror, and so on. This constant visual reminder helped me associate English words with everyday objects, making vocabulary learning more practical and less abstract. Listening to English songs became another key part of my immersion strategy. At first, I chose songs with clear lyrics and repetitive phrases, which made it easier to catch and understand the words. I listened to these songs multiple times, trying to sing along. This practice not only improved my vocabulary, but also helped with pronunciation and the rhythm of the language. Over time, I began to understand more complex lyrics and could appreciate the nuances of the songs. To build a solid foundation, I enrolled in an English language course. The structured environment provided by the course helped me grasp the basics. My instructor focused on essential grammar rules and fundamental vocabulary, which were initially challenging but crucial for my progress. We practiced speaking, listening, reading, and writing, ensuring that all aspects of language learning were covered. The classroom setting also gave me the opportunity to interact with other learners, share experiences, and motivate each other. One of the early challenges I faced was understanding and using English grammar. English grammar rules can be quite different from those in my native language, and this often led to confusion. To tackle this, I used grammar workbooks and online resources that provided clear explanations and plenty of practice exercises. I dedicated a specific time each day to study grammar, focusing on one rule at a time. Breaking down the learning process into manageable parts made it less overwhelming. Reading became another cornerstone of my learning journey. I started with children's books because they used simple language and were often illustrated, which helped in understanding the context. As my confidence grew, I moved on to young adult novels and then to more complex literature. Reading not only expanded my vocabulary, but also exposed me to different writing styles and sentence structures. I kept a notebook where I wrote down new words and their meanings, and I regularly reviewed this vocabulary list. Watching English movies and TV shows with subtitles was another effective strategy. Initially, I watched with subtitles in my native language to understand the context. Gradually, I switched to English subtitles, which helped me match spoken words with their written forms. This practice improved my listening skills and familiarized me with everyday conversational English. I made it a habit to note down any new phrases or idiomatic expressions I encountered and tried to use them in my own sentences. Practicing speaking was perhaps the most daunting yet most rewarding part of my journey. I sought out opportunities to converse in English, even if it meant stepping out of my comfort zone. I joined language exchange programs where I could practice speaking with native English speakers. These conversations were incredibly beneficial as they provided real-life practice and immediate feedback. At first, I was nervous and made many mistakes, but over time, my confidence grew and my speaking skills improved. One of the most helpful tools was using language learning apps. These apps provided interactive exercises, vocabulary games, and daily practice reminders. They made learning fun and engaging, which helped maintain my interest and motivation. Apps that used spaced repetition systems were particularly useful for memorizing vocabulary, as they ensured I reviewed words at optimal intervals for long-term retention. In addition to structured learning, I also tried to think in English as much as possible. This was challenging initially as my mind naturally reverted to my native language. However, with practice, I found myself gradually starting to think in English, which greatly improved my fluency and speed in forming sentences. Writing was another area I focused on. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my day, thoughts, and any new words I had learned. This practice helped me apply new vocabulary and grammar rules in a practical context. Over time, I noticed my writing becoming more coherent and natural. To make learning enjoyable, I incorporated my hobbies into my English practice. For instance, I enjoyed cooking, so I started reading recipes and watching cooking shows in English. This not only improved my language skills, but also made the learning process enjoyable and relevant to my interests. Throughout this journey, I realized the importance of patience and persistence. There were times when progress seemed slow, and it was easy to get discouraged. However, by setting small, achievable goals and celebrating each milestone, I stayed motivated. Each new word learned, each successful conversation, and each book read was a step forward in my journey. By immersing myself in the language, using a variety of learning methods, and staying consistent, I gradually overcame the initial challenges. My journey was far from over, but these foundational steps set me on the path to becoming proficient in English. Episode 2: Developing Strategies. As I progressed in my English learning journey, I discovered several strategies that significantly accelerated my improvement. These methods not only made learning more effective, but also more enjoyable, helping me stay motivated along the way. One of the most effective methods was reading English books that matched my level. I began with children's books because they used simple language and often included illustrations that made it easier to understand the context. Titles like The Very Hungry Caterpillar and Where the Wild Things Are were among my first reads. These books were engaging and provided a solid foundation in basic vocabulary and sentence structure. As I gained more confidence, I gradually moved to young adult novels such as Harry Potter and The Hunger Games. These books were more complex but still accessible, with plots that kept me interested. Reading these novels helped me expand my vocabulary and exposed me to more sophisticated sentence structures and storytelling techniques. I made it a point to underline new words and phrases and later looked up their meanings. I also wrote summaries of the chapters to practice my writing skills and ensure I understood the plot. Watching English movies with subtitles was another crucial strategy. Initially, I watched movies with subtitles in my native language to grasp the story. Once I felt more comfortable, I switched to English subtitles. This practice helped me match spoken words with their written forms, improving both my listening and reading skills. Films like Toy Story and Finding Nemo were great starters because they were entertaining and used clear, simple language. As my skills improved, I watched more complex films and TV shows like Friends and The Office, which helped me understand conversational English and idiomatic expressions. Listening to English songs also played a significant role in my learning process. I started with songs that had clear lyrics and repetitive choruses, such as those by the Beatles and Taylor Swift. I would listen to the songs multiple times, trying to sing along. This not only improved my pronunciation, but also helped me remember new words and phrases. I found that music made learning feel less like a chore and more like an enjoyable activity. Engaging in conversations was crucial for improving my speaking skills. I made it a habit to practice speaking with friends who were fluent in English. At first, I was hesitant and afraid of making mistakes, but I soon realized that speaking regularly was the best way to build confidence and fluency. We would have casual conversations about daily life, hobbies, and current events. These interactions helped me get comfortable with the rhythm and flow of the language. I also joined English conversation clubs and language exchange programs. These provided a supportive environment where I could practice speaking with both native speakers and other learners. In these clubs, we often played language games, discussed books or movies, and shared cultural experiences. These activities were not only fun, but also highly educational as they allowed me to use English in a variety of contexts. Using language learning apps was another effective strategy. Apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and Anki offered interactive exercises that made learning engaging. They also used spaced repetition systems, which helped me remember vocabulary more effectively. These apps provided daily practice reminders, ensuring that I stayed consistent with my learning. I often used them during short breaks or while commuting, making good use of my time. Writing was another area I focused on to enhance my language skills. I kept a daily journal where I wrote about my experiences, thoughts, and any new words or phrases I had learned. This practice helped me apply what I had learned in a practical context and improved my writing fluency. Over time, my journal entries became more detailed and sophisticated, reflecting my growing confidence and competence in English. To further improve my grammar and vocabulary, I used online resources and grammar workbooks. Websites like Grammarly and Purdue OWL offered clear explanations and exercises on various grammar topics. I dedicated specific times each week to focus on grammar, tackling one rule at a time. This systematic approach helped me understand the structure of the language better and reduced the number of mistakes I made in speaking and writing. Listening to English podcasts was another strategy that proved highly beneficial. Podcasts covered a wide range of topics, from news and storytelling to science and culture. Shows like The Daily by the New York Times and TED Talks Daily were informative and helped me get used to different accents and speaking speeds. I would listen to these podcasts during my morning walks or while doing household chores, turning passive activities into valuable learning opportunities. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also played a crucial role in my learning process. I joined forums and social media groups focused on topics of interest, such as technology, literature, and travel. Participating in discussions and reading posts by native speakers exposed me to colloquial language and current slang. It also provided opportunities to ask questions and get feedback from experienced speakers. Another effective strategy was setting specific, achievable goals. I broke down my learning process into smaller, manageable tasks, such as learning a certain number of new words each week or completing a chapter of a book. These short-term goals kept me motivated and provided a sense of accomplishment. I also tracked my progress in a journal, which helped me see how far I had come and reinforced the importance of consistency. Incorporating English into my hobbies and interests made learning more relevant and enjoyable. For instance, I love cooking, so I started following English language cooking blogs and watching cooking shows on YouTube. This not only improved my language skills, but also enriched my culinary knowledge. Similarly, I read articles and watched documentaries on topics I was passionate about, such as science and history. Throughout this journey, I realized the importance of a positive mindset and perseverance. There were times when progress seemed slow and I felt discouraged, but I reminded myself that every small step forward was a step toward fluency. Celebrating milestones, no matter how minor, kept me motivated. Each new word learned, each successful conversation, and each book finished was a victory in my journey to master English. By developing and refining these strategies, I was able to overcome the initial challenges and make steady progress in learning English. These methods not only helped me improve faster, but also made the learning process enjoyable and sustainable. Episode 3. Overcoming Obstacles. Of course, there were times when I felt stuck and frustrated. Learning a new language is rarely a smooth path, and English, with its numerous exceptions and irregularities, presented many challenges. Some grammar concepts, such as the use of tenses or prepositions, were particularly tough to grasp. I often made mistakes, which initially felt discouraging. However, I soon realized that mistakes were not failures but invaluable learning opportunities. One of the biggest hurdles was mastering English grammar. Unlike the straightforward grammar of my native language, English seemed to have countless rules and exceptions. For instance, understanding when to use the past perfect tense versus the simple past was confusing. To tackle this, I dedicated extra time to studying grammar through various resources. I used grammar books, online tutorials, and educational videos that provided clear explanations and examples. Practicing exercises regularly helped reinforce these concepts, but the key was repetition and persistence. Despite my efforts, I would often find myself making the same mistakes. This was frustrating, but I learned to approach these errors with curiosity instead of frustration. Each mistake highlighted an area that needed more attention. I began to keep a detailed journal where I wrote a few sentences in English every day. This practice allowed me to track my progress and see patterns in my errors. For example, I noticed that I frequently mixed up its and its or used incorrect prepositions. By identifying these recurring mistakes, I could focus on correcting them. Joining online forums and language exchange programs was another strategy that significantly helped me overcome obstacles. Platforms like Reddit, language learning forums, and dedicated websites like Italki and Conversation Exchange connected me with native speakers and fellow learners. These interactions provided real-life practice and immediate feedback, which was crucial for improvement. Speaking with native speakers exposed me to natural language use, idiomatic expressions, and colloquial speech that textbooks often overlook. Participating in language exchange programs was both challenging and rewarding. Initially, I felt nervous and self-conscious about speaking English, fearing judgment for my mistakes. However, I quickly realized that these fears were unfounded. Most native speakers were patient and supportive, appreciating my efforts to learn their language. They offered constructive feedback and corrections, which helped me refine my speaking skills. In return, I helped them with my native language, creating a mutually beneficial learning experience. One particularly effective method for overcoming obstacles was using spaced repetition systems, SRS, for vocabulary building. I used apps like Anki to create digital flashcards with new words and phrases. The SRS algorithm scheduled reviews of these cards at optimal intervals, ensuring that I revisited information just before I was likely to forget it. This method significantly improved my retention of new vocabulary. I also made physical flashcards and sticky notes, placing them around my living space to keep new words in sight and in mind. To further improve my listening skills, I started listening to English language podcasts and audiobooks. This immersion helped me get used to different accents and speeds of speech. Podcasts like This American Life and Stuff You Should Know were particularly engaging and informative. I would listen to episodes multiple times, each time picking up new details and better understanding the content. Audiobooks provided a similar benefit, and by following along with the written text, I could see how words were spelled and structured in sentences. Watching English language TV shows and movies without subtitles was another challenging but effective practice. This forced me to rely on my listening skills and contextual understanding. I chose shows with clear dialogue and everyday scenarios, such as Friends and Modern Family. This method also exposed me to cultural references and slang, enriching my overall language comprehension. Writing was another area where I faced significant challenges. Composing essays or even simple paragraphs in English required careful thought and effort. To improve, I started writing more frequently, not just in my journal, but also by participating in online writing communities. Websites like Wattpad and writing subreddits offered platforms where I could share my work and receive feedback from others. This practice helped me develop a clearer, more coherent writing style. I also used online tools like Grammarly to check my grammar and style, learning from the corrections it suggested. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed by the sheer volume of new information to manage. To this, I broke down my learning into smaller, manageable tasks. Instead of trying to learn a large number of new words at once, I focused on mastering a few each day. This approach made the learning process more sustainable and less intimidating. I also set specific, achievable goals, such as completing a chapter of a book or holding a 10-minute conversation in English. Achieving these goals provided a sense of accomplishment and kept me motivated throughout my journey. Maintaining a positive mindset was crucial. There were days when progress seemed slow or non-existent, and it was easy to get discouraged. During these times, I reminded myself of how far I had come and the progress I had already made. Celebrating small victories, like successfully ordering food in English or understanding a movie without subtitles, helped maintain my motivation. I also surrounded myself with supportive friends and language partners who encouraged and motivated me. In addition to structured learning, I found that incorporating English into my hobbies made the process more enjoyable and effective. For example, as a cooking enthusiast, I started following English language cooking blogs and YouTube channels. This not only improved my language skills, but also enhanced my culinary knowledge. Similarly, I explored English content related to my other interests, such as science and technology. This approach kept learning relevant and engaging, ensuring that I remained motivated and passionate about my progress. Overcoming obstacles in language learning requires patience, persistence, and a willingness to embrace challenges. Each setback is an opportunity to learn and grow. By using a combination of structured study, practical application, and immersive experiences, I was able to navigate these challenges and make steady progress in my English learning journey. Episode 4. Making Progress. Slowly but surely, I started to notice my progress in learning English. The journey had been filled with challenges and setbacks, but each small victory along the way reinforced my determination and showed me that my hard work was paying off. These moments of realization were not just milestones. They were affirmations that I was on the right path. One of the most memorable milestones was the first time I understood an entire conversation in English without needing to translate it in my head. It happened during a casual coffee chat with an English-speaking friend. We were discussing everyday topics, and I suddenly realized that I was fully engaged in the conversation without mentally switching back to my native language. This breakthrough gave me a tremendous boost in confidence. It felt like a barrier had been lifted, and I could finally participate in conversations more fluidly. As I continued to immerse myself in the language, writing emails and essays became less daunting. Initially, writing in English was a slow and painstaking process. I would draft sentences, then painstakingly review and edit them, worried about making mistakes. But over time, as I practiced writing daily in my journal and participated in online writing forums, I noticed a shift. My sentences started to flow more naturally, and I spent less time second-guessing myself. I began to enjoy the process of expressing my thoughts in English, and this was reflected in the quality and coherence of my writing. A particularly rewarding experience was when I wrote my first essay for an English class and received positive feedback from my instructor. The essay was on a topic I was passionate about, and I had put a lot of effort into researching and crafting it. When I received my grade and read the encouraging comments, it was a significant validation of my progress. It showed me that not only was I able to communicate my ideas effectively, but I could also engage critically with the language. Thinking in English was another significant milestone. At first, it was challenging because my mind naturally reverted to my native language. But with consistent practice and immersion, I began to notice that I was starting to think in English without effort. Simple thoughts, plans for the day, and internal dialogues began occurring in English. This shift made a huge difference in my fluency, as it meant I could form sentences and express ideas more quickly and naturally during conversations. One area where I saw substantial progress was in my listening skills. Early on, understanding native speakers was one of the most difficult aspects of learning English. They spoke quickly, used slang, and had different accents. To improve, I consistently watched English movies and TV shows and listened to podcasts. Initially, I relied heavily on subtitles, but as my skills improved, I started watching without them. The first time I watched an entire movie without subtitles and understood almost everything was a significant achievement. It proved that my listening skills had advanced to a new level. I also noticed improvement in my ability to read and comprehend complex texts. I started with simple books and gradually moved to more challenging literature, newspapers, and academic articles. At first, I needed a dictionary for almost every paragraph, but over time, my vocabulary expanded and my comprehension skills improved. The moment I finished reading my first English novel without needing constant reference to a dictionary was incredibly satisfying. It opened up a new world of literature and information that I could explore on my own. Speaking in English became increasingly comfortable and enjoyable. Joining conversation clubs and language exchange programs allowed me to practice regularly. Initially, I was nervous and made frequent mistakes, but with time, my fluency improved. One notable moment was during a language exchange event where I spoke with native English speakers for over an hour without feeling overwhelmed. The conversation flowed naturally, and I could see that my speaking skills had reached a level where I could comfortably engage in extended discussions. Another significant moment of progress was when I began to use idiomatic expressions and colloquialisms correctly. Understanding and using these phrases appropriately was challenging because they often don't translate directly into other languages. However, by watching TV shows, listening to native speakers, and asking questions when I didn't understand something, I gradually started to incorporate these expressions into my speech. The first time I used an idiom correctly in a conversation and received an appreciative nod from a native speaker was a moment of pride. Engaging with English-speaking communities online also contributed to my progress. Participating in forums, social media groups, and online courses helped me practice reading and writing in real time. These interactions exposed me to different writing styles, tones, and registers. It also allowed me to ask questions and receive feedback, which was invaluable for refining my language skills. Being part of a community of learners and native speakers created a supportive environment where I could practice and improve continuously. One of the most significant measures of my progress was my improved ability to understand and engage with English language media. Watching news broadcasts, documentaries, and educational videos without subtitles became a regular practice. Understanding the news and following complex topics in documentaries was a clear indicator that my listening and comprehension skills had reached an advanced level. It also meant that I could stay informed about global events and trends directly from English sources, which broadened my perspective and knowledge. Incorporating English into my hobbies and interests further solidified my progress. As a cooking enthusiast, following English language recipes and cooking shows became second nature. I also started reading science fiction and fantasy novels in English, which not only improved my language skills, but also enriched my imagination and creativity. Engaging with content related to my interests kept learning enjoyable and relevant, ensuring that I remained motivated and passionate about my progress. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that making progress in learning English was not just about reaching specific milestones, but about the continuous effort and dedication I put into it. Each step, no matter how small, contributed to my overall improvement. Celebrating these milestones kept me motivated and reminded me that every bit of effort was bringing me closer to my goal of fluency. It reinforced the belief that with perseverance, patience, and the right strategies, I could overcome any challenge and continue to grow as an English speaker. As I continue to learn and improve, I remain committed to pushing my boundaries and embracing new challenges. The journey is ongoing, and there is always more to learn and explore. But each milestone achieved and each obstacle overcome strengthens my resolve and passion for mastering the English language. Episode 5. Key Tips and Strategies. Through my experience, I found several tips and strategies to be particularly helpful in my journey to learn English. These methods not only made the process more effective, but also ensured that it was engaging and sustainable. Here are some key tips and strategies that I recommend. Consistency is key. Consistency is perhaps the most critical aspect of language learning. Early in my journey, I realized that trying to cram information in one sitting was not effective. Instead, I adopted a routine of practicing a little every day. Even on busy days, I made sure to dedicate at least 15 to 30 minutes to studying English. This could involve reviewing vocabulary, reading a short article, or listening to a podcast episode. I set specific goals for each day, such as learning 5 new words or writing a paragraph in English. This consistent daily practice helped reinforce what I had learned and made it easier to retain new information over time. These small daily efforts accumulated, leading to significant progress. I kept a language learning diary to track my daily practice and reflect on what I had achieved, which helped maintain my motivation. Engage with different media. Engaging with different media forms is crucial for exposing oneself to various aspects of the language. Books, movies, music, and podcasts all offer unique learning opportunities and cater to different learning styles. I started with simple children's books and gradually moved to young adult novels and more complex literature. Reading not only improved my vocabulary, but also exposed me to different writing styles and sentence structures. I made it a habit to underline new words and write them down in a vocabulary notebook, which I reviewed regularly. Movies and TV shows. Watching English movies and TV shows was both entertaining and educational. Initially, I used subtitles in my native language, then switched to English subtitles, and eventually watched without any subtitles. This progression helped improve my listening skills and understanding of spoken English. Shows like Friends and The Office were particularly helpful for learning everyday conversational English and idiomatic expressions. Music. Listening to English songs was another enjoyable way to learn. I chose songs with clear lyrics and repetitive choruses, such as those by the Beatles and Ed Sheeran. Singing along helped with pronunciation and rhythm. I often looked up the lyrics and tried to understand the meaning of the songs, which enriched my vocabulary. Podcasts. Podcasts were incredibly useful for improving my listening skills and learning about various topics. I listened to shows like The Daily by The New York Times and TED Talks Daily during my commute or while doing chores. These podcasts exposed me to different accents, speaking speeds, and vocabulary related to various subjects. Speak as much as possible. Speaking is essential for solidifying language learning, and it was an area where I initially felt most vulnerable. However, I soon realized that the more I practiced speaking, the more confident I became. I sought every opportunity to converse in English, whether it was with friends, language exchange partners, or even talking to myself. Joining conversation clubs and language exchange programs was particularly beneficial. These provided a supportive environment where I could practice speaking with native speakers and other learners. The feedback I received was invaluable, helping me correct mistakes and improve my pronunciation and fluency. Engaging in regular conversations also helped me think in English and reduce the time I spent translating in my head. I also practiced speaking by narrating my day-to-day activities in English. For example, while cooking, I would describe the steps I was taking or the ingredients I was using. This practice helped me become more comfortable with spontaneous speech and improved my ability to describe everyday situations. Use technology. Technology offers a plethora of tools and resources that can aid language learning. I made extensive use of language learning apps and online courses, which provided structured learning and kept me on track. Language apps. Apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and Anki were instrumental in my vocabulary building and grammar practice. Duolingo offered gamified lessons that made learning fun, while Memrise used spaced repetition to reinforce vocabulary retention. Anki allowed me to create custom flashcards, which I used to review new words and phrases regularly. Online courses. Enrolling in online courses through platforms like Coursera, edX, and Udemy provided structured lessons and access to quality educational materials. These courses often included video lectures, quizzes, and assignments that helped reinforce learning. Some courses even offered interaction with instructors and fellow students, creating a more immersive learning experience. Grammar and writing tools. Tools like Grammarly and the Hemingway editor were invaluable for improving my writing. Grammarly helped me identify and correct grammar mistakes, while the Hemingway editor highlighted complex sentences and suggested simpler alternatives. Using these tools regularly improved my writing clarity and correctness. Join a community. Finding a community of learners and speakers was crucial for staying motivated and engaged. Learning a language can sometimes feel isolating, but being part of a community provided support, encouragement, and opportunities for practice. Study groups. I joined study groups both online and offline. These groups often met regularly to practice speaking, discuss books or articles, and share learning resources. Being part of a study group created a sense of accountability and motivated me to keep up with my practice. Language exchange partners. Language exchange programs connected me with native English speakers who were learning my native language. This mutually beneficial arrangement allowed us to practice speaking each other's languages. It was a great way to make new friends and learn about different cultures while improving language skills. Online communities. Participating in online forums, social media groups, and discussion boards related to language learning was another effective strategy. Platforms like Reddit, Facebook, and specialized language learning websites provided spaces where I could ask questions, share experiences, and receive feedback from a global community of learners and native speakers. Additional tips. In addition to these core strategies, I found a few other tips helpful in my language learning journey. Immerse yourself in the language. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change the language settings on your devices to English, listen to English radio stations, and read English news articles. Immersion helps create a natural learning environment. Set achievable goals. Break down your learning into manageable tasks and set specific, achievable goals. For example, aim to learn 5 new words a day or complete a chapter of an English book each week. Achieving these small goals provides a sense of accomplishment and keeps you motivated. Be patient and persistent. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient with yourself and persistent in your efforts. There will be times when progress seems slow, but consistency will lead to improvement over time. Celebrate milestones. Recognize and celebrate your progress. Each milestone, no matter how small, is a step forward. Celebrating achievements like successfully holding a conversation or finishing a book helps maintain motivation and reinforces your commitment to learning. By incorporating these tips and strategies into my daily routine, I was able to make steady progress in learning English. Each method complemented the others, creating a comprehensive and engaging learning experience. These strategies not only helped me improve my language skills, but also made the process enjoyable and rewarding. Conclusion. Looking back on my journey, I realized that learning English is not just about mastering a language. It's about persistence, resilience, and embracing new challenges. Each obstacle I faced, each mistake I made, was an opportunity to learn and grow. Through dedication and perseverance, I was able to overcome those challenges and make significant progress in my English learning journey. To anyone embarking on a similar path, I encourage you to keep pushing forward, even when it feels difficult. Learning a new language is a journey filled with ups and downs, but each step forward brings you closer to your goals. Remember to be patient with yourself. Celebrate your achievements, and never be afraid to ask for help when needed. With dedication and the right strategies, you can achieve your English learning goals, whether you're aiming to improve your fluency for academic, professional, or personal reasons. Know that it is possible with consistent effort and a positive mindset. As you continue on your language learning journey, I wish you the best of luck and happy learning. Remember, the rewards of mastering a new language are immeasurable, opening doors to new opportunities, connections, and experiences that enrich your life in countless ways.